we'll start like this. So greetings, everybody. I am Josh, and this is yet another edition of A Round. So we're a community of decision makers from software startups, and these startups are in the life cycle of their A round. So either they've reached or they're reaching for that Series A, or of course I want to include the bootstrap community. So that's who we are. And while we're going and everyone else is still coming in, I want to go and do any introductions. But since we're running so far behind schedule, let's do this. I'll introduce myself, and then we'll just take just a couple people. So right now, my introduction, your name, your role, company, and what you're looking for. My example for me would be Josh Rosenthal, community manager at A Round, and I'm looking for leaders at these companies that I had mentioned to join A Round. It is A Round being a community for the leaders of these software companies. That is the head of customer success, the VP of engineering, the chief revenue officer, and obviously the founder. Those people, and of course, due to Jeff's presentation last week, he made a great point that we should also be including the first salesperson to come in and bring that company to market from that sales point of view. So those people are included as well. Let's just go and do a quick one. Sebastian, you're going to be last though. So Alex, if you're available, do you want to turn on the camera, do a quick introduction?
Is there? Hi, Josh. Yeah, my name
Hey,
is
there we
Alex
are.
Ignatov. I'm a founder of company called Mental Momentum. We do a digital health product to help people to focus faster and stay focused longer. Nice to be here.
Excellent. Fantastic. And then Ben, if you want to jump in.
Hey, my name is Ben Abrams. I am the founder of an investment company in Thailand, currently building out internet-connected laundromats. Um,
And here we are.
my background is engineering. So.
Good. And one of the things that you and I have talked about offline is appreciation for you representing the technical perspective. I know you're going to be presenting yourself in a couple weeks. And one thing that I want to make sure that we're doing is bringing everybody to the table. So this is not just a commercial side. This would be both sides of the company. So what I want to do next is introduce our speaker and then give him the chance to introduce himself and then jump in. So we have Sebastian Holst. He's going to talk about aligning investor and founder interests. And he's the founder at Fool Me Once. So Mr. Sebastian, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm not going to talk much about Fool Me Once. It's doing a number of RAG services to sort of automate the top end of the funnel. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about, maybe I should share my stuff. Let's see, hit my share button.
Should be right down there at the bottom.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I wish we were using Teams, but I'm
hey, here we are.
Only once. Get to my presentation. All right, everybody should see my screen. Yep. So my format, so it's a 15-minute talk, and I'm going to definitely stick to my 15 minutes. My format is going to be, I'm going to share a personal experience, real world, something that happened to me that, anecdotal as it relates to learning about VC and founder relationships. Obviously, taking out a VC is a momentous task or decision, I should say, for all parties. And whether you agree with my observations or not, I'm sure we can all agree the more both parties know going into that relationship and throughout the duration of that relationship, the better. right? In fact, one statistic I recently saw was that actually founders who have failed with a prior VC business are actually still more successful than first-time founders. So I think that speaks to the importance of just knowing what you're going into and sort of a principle of least surprise. As I mentioned, my format is tell you a little bit about something that happened to me, and then I'll try to turn that into like a pearl of wisdom or two. So this one, we'll start chronologically. It was late 1980s. I had spent my first couple of years working at IBM doing security, so very conservative. But I was recruited to be the 10th employee at a New York City biotech startup. It was literally my first day. I walked in, turned out there was a competitor raising funds themselves, and the CEO gave me a fake business card, told me to pretend to be an analyst, and sent me into the meeting to collect as much of the competitor's information as I could. I mean, just anecdotally behind the image, it was literally pouring rain. I was in a trench coat, walking the streets of New York. I felt like I was in like a B detective movie. Amazingly, because I understood nothing of what was going on, I was not detected. I made it through. I brought back the information. I didn't, as I said, I didn't understand anything truly, but I did recognize that my time at IBM did not prepare me in any way for a startup world. And so I knew I had to learn a lot. So first thing I want to point out from that experience is culture matters. It matters on both sides. So I'm not going to say why you should use VC or not. I think it's sort of recognized, common knowledge. The real extra value of VC is more than just dollars, right? They're supposed to bring industry expertise. They're supposed to help you make introductions. What's often not talked about, particularly for first-time founders, is that they will be, whether or not you're aware of it, a role model for you in terms of how to behave ethically, operationally, how you present yourself, your story. And that turns out, I think, to be extremely important. Turns out, statistically anyway, VC partners who had been founders are slightly more successful than those that haven't been. And so again, I think it's understanding both sides of the coin, if you will. But it's important to understand the practices, because everybody will tell you, or VCs will talk about sort of insider knowledge. Here's how things really happen. Here's what you need to do. They don't all agree, and they don't all operate by the same rules. And I'm not going to say what's right or wrong, other than to say it needs to be aligned. So fun fact, the CEO in question, if you contact me offline, I'm happy to tell you exactly who it was. But I will tell you, a few years later, he was sent to prison for insider trading in a very public trial that I can almost guarantee you everyone on this call knows about. It was a small thing on that first day. I don't think I broke any rules whatsoever, any laws certainly, but it was definitely a little borderline. It was just an indication. So look for that. That's important. All right. So I'm just going to, again, rapidly step through these stories. So let's see. This one, new company, new millennia. I have been operating, I was VP of marketing. We were about 10 million in sales, and we got an offer for 10 times earnings. Also, coincidentally, just because I mentioned them before, from IBM, having nothing to do with anything prior. It was so serious an offer, or it was far enough along, that HR actually brought in financial advisors to help us shelter the windfall that was, certainly coming our way. But to our surprise, our VC vetoed it, and as was their right. We would have been supremely happy, but at 10x, but they needed at least 100x, and they were committed to risk everything to hit that 100x, because they had dozens of companies in their portfolio, and so they only needed one or two to succeed. And so, kind of disappointing for us, right? That's called a money beach exit, right? Where the founders get enough money that they can live on a beach. But that doesn't cut it for VCs, right? Again, statistics show it's only like 1 in 10 of their portfolio companies will generate the majority of their returns. So that means they expect to burn out about 9, the other 9, right? And so, how much is enough? If you're not in agreement with that, you're gonna, again, be extremely disappointed. And that's one restrictive covenant, right? They had veto power over any exit. There's typically lots of covenants that go into these agreements. And again, it's not dirty pool. It's not dishonest. They're being very transparent, in fact, about what's important to them, and where they need to exert control. So you can learn a lot. So I would definitely look at all of those covenants, not so much as a contractual obligation, but they're telling you what they've learned. They've done this dozens, if not hundreds of times cumulatively. And so that you can learn a lot from that. And again, I've seen them written up. 5x is or below is typically auto veto from a VC. Again, my experience was 10x, right? But again, no money beach exits. So if that's your hope, you need to have a heart-to-heart with your VC. Again, this burnout rate, another stat, 5-year survival rate, a bootstrap company, 3 to 4 out of 10 are still around after 5 years. Again, it's 10 to 15%, right? They're going to push for an exit at a huge multiple. They know it's really hard to hit that escape velocity, but that's what they're looking for. Again, my experience is they're not being sneaky about it. You just can't be so optimistic that you think it will ultimately matter. Again, I'm going to zip through these. New company, new story, no IBM on this one. I was, again, a VP of marketing, different company. In fact, I had been recruited by this company, by the CEO specifically, and I had actually relocated. So I had a good relationship with that CEO. We were a few years into it, and literally with no warning, same day, the board came down and replaced our CEO. As was, again, apparently their right. And the new CEO was an outgoing CFO from one of their portfolio companies that had hit one of those amazing exits, right? So regardless of what they tell you, past success, they do think is a predictor of future success, no matter what disclaimers they may put in writing. So they thought this CFO, who's been successful, could just be facelessly plopped into our organization. But the problem was that our CEO, founding CEO, was charismatic. He was an evangelist. He could own any room he walked into, which is often the case with a founder. Passionate about the mission. And the new CEO, I'm sure, was an awesome chief financial officer. But I'm not being glib or mean. He was a wallflower even by accounting standards. I mean, he did not like to talk to people. It showed, and feel for the industry. It was a different company or industry that the company that he had exited was in. So people, clients, it was a train wreck. And to the board's credit, I suppose, they quickly replaced him with yet another CEO that they chose, and he was a real CEO. He had experience at it, and it's pretty good. But the morale and the confidence in the investors, it really showed us that they didn't understand us and candidly didn't care too much about us. So what I would take away from that is you've got to stand out from their crowd, right? One of the major differences in perception or perspective is you're one of a portfolio. And so you run the risk unless you actively distinguish yourself personally from looking like an interchangeable piece. So you've got to manage up not just to your direct partners, but into their firm. And you have to figure out how to do that. One way to do that is to I call it embracing the asymmetry of information. There are certain things before the investment, after their investment, where you will always know more than them. Be a great resource, either as it relates to your company or the industry they care about or the companies they care about. Make it a point to deliver some intel where you stand out. You need to have a personal relationship, not just with your direct partner, but with the firm. And also make sure to ask them for advice. Again, a VC should be able to give you lots of insights. And as is true with generic sales, which is in effect what you're doing to some extent, when you're just sitting there with wide eyes, taking in all of their wisdom, I'm only being slightly sarcastic there, you'll never sound smarter, right? They'll tell you all of their, what they're thinking about, what they think is important, and they'll come away with a feeling that you get it, right? You get it. And that they'll be less likely to sort of include you in these sort of arbitrary moves that they make. Again, almost half of the CEOs are replaced between the initial round of funding and an IPO. And sometimes the CEO wants to step aside, sometimes they don't. But it shows a huge turnover rate. Certainly approved by, if not initiated by, the investors as part of their exit or on the way to their exit. So lastly, I've seen recently a couple places, pundits, will compare the relationship between, a portfolio company and VCs as almost being like a marriage because of the, finance, the emotion that's involved, each bringing different skills. But if you consider the classic wedding vows, for richer and for poorer, in good times and bad, and last and most significant, until death do you part, I hope you'll agree that's a terrible analogy. And this is the key point. You do not share the same loyalties and you do not share the same vision, right? You need to protect and defend, and I don't mean against like a hostile entity. Again, I realize I might sound a little like that, but I'm not. They are, my experience with good VCs is they are transparent. They're very clear, but it's sort of an observation bias that a founder wants to believe that everybody is drinking their Kool-Aid, and they're not. And not only are they not, their business is encoded into federal statutes, right? So here's a U.S. statute, right? VC fund managers owe a fiduciary duty of care and loyalty is in there, to their limited partners, not to their portfolio companies, to act in their best interests at all times. If they at any point can be shown to have been taking unnecessary risks for their fund, they risk prosecution. And by the way, they don't want to do it anyway, but I'm just saying it's not subjective. Theirs is not your business. So your business versus theirs, get comfortable with their definition of success. Make sure they're comfortable with yours. They're probably more adept at assessing that because they know how important that is. And that includes vision, mission, and again, getting back to ethics and modeling good behavior, worldview. So my conclusion would be that VC is super powerful, right? Super powerful. Whether it's a power as a, for value as an asset, or whether it becomes a toxic liability, that's going to be entirely on context. And to a large degree, that's under your control. Going back to one of my first points, principle of least surprise. That's all I got.
Hey, actually, I don't think that's all you got. I think you have a whole lot more content that you can go and provide on this, but I appreciate you sticking to the rigor that we have. So I know that we have some people in here, and I'm looking at one. I just don't want to call them out. That actually does come from the finance side. So let me just open it up to any questions that we have, if you do. Or Alex.
Hi, Sebastian. Thanks for the presentation. So I've got a question. I think if I understand correctly, the one of the most important points is to keep the good communication with VCs throughout all the time, right? But what other maybe less obvious tips you may have to kind of foster this relationship going forward, if any?
See, what other sort of techniques you were saying?
Yeah, besides, well, clear communication, not doing, well, some stupid things, right, with the business and things like that.
Right. So like, I guess to me, the way I think of it is just like building a relationship going the other direction for enterprise sales. Like when you do business with a large enterprise, they are not just making a decision about a transaction or a contractual relationship. They are putting their personal capital and their personal brand next to yours, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to. So I'm going to sort of say it's not different than information, but I want to say it needs to be a rich sort of spectrum of information. So it can be dumb stuff like what hobbies and family. It can be regional stuff. It could be school stuff, sport. Like you need candidly, and so I generated all those images. I took away all the faces when I showed those roles. Like what you need to be is you need to establish your humanity and your trust with them. And so that they have because one, you're asking them to take they have not only taken a financial risk with you, but reputation is everything in that industry. So if they do something dumb or show that the phrase I've heard is going native. I heard it more with enterprise sales. Like if you get an enterprise company to give you $10 million for annual subscription, they basically connected their career to yours. If you crash and burn, their career is over, right? Because this idiot gave them 10 million, right? And so, you want them to take risks with you. So I guess that's a sort of the key point, right? I ended with, they can go to prison or be fined if they can't demonstrate they put their limited partners first. But if they feel they trust you, they take that, there's a lot of wiggle room there, right? And so you need them, to really trust you, right? And so there was just in interest of time, I killed the last example. But I will say personal relationships, when they go bad, that's a huge, right? Like you need to panic before anything happens. Like you need to find a new partner in that firm, because you're done. Like even if they haven't done it yet, they'll find a way to distance themselves from you, and And that's, the end.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, I know that we've reached time, but if there's any questions that are here, I want to allow it to go on. Sebastian, if you'll stick around, otherwise, I think that,
John Peters raised his hand.
yeah, how polite.
Is
I think you should be able to talk.
Am I the finance guy you were referring to? Okay, so
You are the finance guy.
very good presentation. I'm sorry I didn't catch it all, but I know, I see, I can agree with you, having dealt with VCs for many years and a necessary evil. But I was on a, and the whole idea of alignment of interest, it's absolutely true. But it's interesting when you're pitching, right, to a VC. And I was on a conference call earlier, and one of the guys that I was actually with, really super smart guy, and we were talking about, well, if you're solving a problem, right, that the VC doesn't get, then that's not going to resonate.
Mhm.
But you could be every founder, everyone going for VC money actually wants to align with the VC. So
Mhm.
what is it that you're looking for? And it's like, if it's between, listen, I have this really good problem I want to solve. I know it doesn't resonate with you, but I have this really important problem that I want to solve, versus getting the money. They all go for getting the money. Now, this leads to some challenges down the line, especially if that VC invests. But here, there's a long-winded question. Like, if you're with a VC, you're sitting down at a VC, especially, let's say, a deep tech VC,
Mhm.
fairly specific. Do you say what you need to say to appeal to them to get their money, and then backtrack later and hope to repair, like, bring them on to, seeing your vision later? Or do you say, listen, this doesn't work because they are not really getting, they're not really understanding or appreciate the potential of the problem that I'm solving? They're not.
Yeah,
So
I get it. No, I
right?
get it. So there are a couple layers to your question. Excellent question. Because you're doing a snapshot at a point in time. So I'm going to do a couple quick analogies. My daughter, for a period of time, thank God she recovered from this, but for a little while she wanted to go into musical theater. And they have a thing though where, when you're auditioning, you just say yes to everything. Are you available 8 days a week? Can you work 36 hours a day? No problem. Can you ice skate? No problem. Like, it's just yes.
You're right. Yeah.
Because and then if you should be offered the part, that's when you say, wait a minute, 36 hours. There's only 24 hours in the day. You're insane.
Learn how to ice skate.
Right. Yeah. Well, some of that is you'll play catch, but part of it, so there's a time and a place for all the things that you raise. And when the forum is you're pitching to them, right? You need to pitch to them, right? And so, but that's where knowing, like, how long is their average investment? Is it 3 years, 5 years? Do they stick around 10? What multiples do they need for an exit? Like there are other things that they understand that they actually care more about, right? And so say you're talking about, I don't know, I'll make something up, agentic AI, right? I can't imagine anyone's pitching that, right? But if they don't get it, your particular take on it, right? Yes, during that pitch, I wouldn't worry about it. Like, I'd say, oh yeah, it's just like this, it's just like this. But for me, it would be a red flag, because as I briefly mentioned, what you hope to get from a VC are introductions, and you hope to get advice. And so if they don't understand what you're doing, they're not going to, they're going to end up introducing you to people that don't need you because they pitched you. Oh, you said AI. I got a company for you. Well, wait a minute. They're doing voice generation. I do medical devices. I'm making it up, but you know what I mean? Like they're going to be a poor resource. But I agree, in the pitch, it's going to be, we're going to hit these multiples. Here's why. Here's how we've done it before. Here's, the inside, just ding, 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 ding. Get the part. And then when you get into the covenants and the funding and the valuation, dilution, and all that other stuff, that's that's when you know, hopefully you have a choice. Like, hopefully it's not your only way forward. Hopefully you may have a
The
choice.
only difference there, though, is that, I know something about musical theater. My mother was a professor of musical theater for 40 years at State University of Binghamton. So I've seen all these guys, and yes, you do anything you can to get the part. But I think if you are a startup, that's not necessarily the right way to go, because if you're going to try to meld your vision with the vision of the VC, it's probably not the right VC. And that's
Right, it might not be
good.
What? Right, and that's what I'm saying. So we'll just stick to this analogy, and I'm sorry to everybody else. Right, sometimes you end up going on a cruise ship. Sometimes you have to work at, you know, an amusement park and be a character, right? Before you get your breakout play on Broadway. So yes, you might. Again, the time to do that is before you take the money. So I don't think you should do it.
Yeah.
But when you've got your 15 minutes of pitch, that's not the time when you start, you know, adding, you know, qualifications. Like you know, you want them to want you, and then when it comes down to it, I agree. I wouldn't say after we take the money we'll figure it out. I agree. No, that would be that's yeah, that's terrible. You'll regret it.
Anyway, thank you. Good presentation.
No,
Appreciate
well,
it.
thank you. It was a great question.
All right. Let me ask for anything outstanding. Anyone that's here? And if not, then I think we've done a good job basically sticking to the timing that we have. So, Mr. Sebastian, thank you very much. People that want to go and get in touch with him, you can go and look at the live stream. You'll see his information at the top. You can also go and see on the LinkedIn live meeting. His profile is there, and obviously just write me, and I'm happy to go and connect you. So, everybody, from Madrid, where I am today, all the way through both coasts of the United States, thank you for being here. One person in Thailand, and of course, John's here in Madrid, just in the other room right now. Take care, everybody. Thank you
Thanks,
for being
everybody.
here.
Thank you, Josh.
Bye.
Thank you.
Just you and me, man.
Yeah.
Is anybody else on?